A ghost light is an electric light left on stage in a theater when it is unoccupied, typically consisting of a bare bulb in a wire cage. It serves practical purposes for safety, helping people navigate the dark space, and is also associated with theatrical superstitions about ghosts. This is Ghost Lights, Stories from the Empty Stage.
Everyone, welcome back to Ghost Lights Productions podcast. This is episode 2 of our series of how a small town theater company hit the ground running and found success along the way. I'd like to introduce our guests today. Of course, you'll recognize Cindy from our first podcast, our director, producer, the mastermind of our Vermilion Theatre Productions back in the day, and also like to introduce Mark Sander, who was very much the adhesive to keep a lot of things together on the musical end, production, the background. I
was the duct tape.
The duct tape, yeah, that's for sure. So where we left off in our last podcast, we're talking about how did this all come to be, and all the puzzle pieces coming together to make the magic happen. But Mark, you were very much involved from the get-go too. You were there from basically from day one as well. And so what was your coming in? What was your mindset when Cindy approached you and said, "Hey, I've got this crazy idea"?
Well, I knew that I couldn't do it myself because I'm not really a gifted instrumentalist, but I do have friends in Edmonton, and my band, Cone of Silence, are all in Edmonton, and there a lot of them were alumni of Grant MacEwan College and the music school there, which is a very well-known school. It was actually started by the late late Senator Tommy Banks, and a highly respectable place that taught young people to be musicians with a sense of professionalism, in that they could have skills not just as instrumentalists, but as people who could get gigs and be able to make a living at it. And so in order to do that, you need to learn things like sight reading. And that is a skill that is really drilled into the folks at Grant MacEwan. So I went to my friend and said, I have a friend I know in Vermilion, and she's putting together a theater production, a musical production of Grease with young people, and I need to find a pit, some backing musicians. So I asked him if he would be keen, and he had a scheduling conflict, but he said, "Look, let's pick up some folks that we know." And so the way we did it was that we got, I think Grease came with the scores, didn't they, Cindy?
Yeah, everything we had. Yeah. Everything for every show that we did for the first 8 shows that we had an orchestration, we had background music. Yeah.
So it was really a case of, for Grease and for Little Shop of Horrors too, case of making sure that the people who were keen to do this got the scores, and they were learning up the scores. And in the meantime, what we were doing was, I think, playing the actual soundtracks so that the kids could get familiarized with the music and where it fits into everything. And then into intensive week, we'd have the musicians come out, right? Or pre-dress rehearsal anyway.
Yeah.
And then we'd go through it with the pit. And of course they're Grant MacEwan Mafia. They know exactly what they're doing, and so it was a pretty seamless thing, actually, I thought.
I think how...
No. Go ahead, Mike.
I just think how like I wasn't. I talked about how I didn't join in Greece. I came in Little Shop, but how like retrospect being like a band teacher right now, being very immersed in kind of the music culture of this region right now. And I've spent professional development at Grant MacEwan, and I've been around the universities, the areas. I've talked to people. Looking back on Little Shop, I can't believe how I don't know if lucky is the word or just privileged to have live music. Like that's a huge deal. I direct like my public school, the school I work for. I'm directing the after school drama program here, and I'm like I can't even imagine having live music. And for me at the beginning, I don't think any of us young actors like actually understood the gravity of whoa, this is a big deal, and it was great. The music was great, and so I guess there's a lot of respect now looking back, thinking like whoa, like we did kind of have all the bells and whistles and just how awesome that was and how easy it was. I don't know. I can't speak for the musicians.
Well, yeah, I'm going to just interject here
Yeah.
quickly to say that what I found that the musicians were able to do that canned music cannot do is that they could catch on right away that a child was having trouble.
Yeah,
And they
exactly.
would like just play for a while till the kids kind of got okay. And they would like adjust. Tell me if I'm wrong, Mark, but they would,
No,
if there was a certain kid having trouble, like, and they would like just on right there transpose the music a little bit.
you
So
could they could even transpose keys in a couple of
yeah,
cases if they needed to, which to me is, magical thinking. For people, it's one thing to sight read. That's a whole discipline in itself. But then to sight read and transpose on top of it, that's like,
Yeah.
you know.
But I think that talks about the professionalism of who was coming out and who
Yeah.
you picked. Like, did you handpick the musicians? Did
Well,
you
I had a
like?
little help from my friends, as they say. Uh, they they were they were people I knew of in a couple of cases, and they were band members in Cone of Silence in other cases.
Yeah.
So there is an element of whom you know to have something like this happen in the kind of milieu that we had with VTP. But
and we didn't
I can't.
have that in Vermilion. Vermilion didn't have that. I mean, good luck trying to find musicians. I mean, there may have been, and Mark, you can speak to this. I can think of a couple bands that were there, very few, that could probably have pulled it off, but they were mostly like rock and roll and didn't have that extra. And we were able to add, depending on which production it was, get a hold of instrumental people that could play other instruments other than just the rock and roll type instruments. But to access that in Vermilion was not something that was there. So you can speak to
No,
that.
that is true. However, Vermilion is right down the road from Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that if you were to think about, I'm trying to think about a town the size of Vermilion, say outside of Calgary. I don't know, maybe Claire's home, let's say. I don't I don't know how easy it would be to do what we were able to do because Grant MacEwan is quite a unique school. It's certainly peculiar. I mean, maybe less so now because there are more things like the Musicians Institute of Technology in Los Angeles or Berkeley in Boston. But there's nothing really in Calgary like unto Grant MacEwan. So the proximity was also a great blessing that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also think like it's kind of the music scene like almost like a gig, right? Like the location of where it is, it doesn't take a lot to get there. Like growing up in that small town, 2 hours seems like well, a distance. But I think when this is what you do, what you're trained to do, what you have all your training in, a quick 2-hour trip to be able to perform is worth the time and gas, I guess. Maybe not in this economy, but back then.
Let me check with my loan agent.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
But I think about that too. Like
we didn't pay them. Like they all thought it was a unique enough project that they're like, yeah, no, this is for young people, and yeah, we want to get behind this. Like, or maybe if we did pay them, it was like pittance. Like I feel almost like we might have given them, what would you call it?
Well, honoraria to cover gas.
Yeah, just to cover gas. Really was all
and
it was.
And we would feed them, right?
That we would, yes.
Feeding people is a good part of keeping a musician going.
The lifestyle of a musician.
Lifestyle of a musician is please give me some food first.
Well, but they would know like that. They wouldn't be getting paid like they would a regular gig, like
But you're right. I mean, there is a spirit of adventurism with younger people in say at Grant Mac. I mean, they would find that to be a fascinating opportunity. They wouldn't sit there and get all. And I think that was part of the pedagogy of Grant MacEwan too. I think Tommy Banks really infused that into people. Is that while it is possible to die from exposure generally is good. Yeah.
And as Audrey too is singing about "Feed Me" on stage, the musicians are like, "I really relate with this. This is, me too,
yes,
man.
Right.
Me too."
That's right. That looks exactly like my theory teacher.
Yeah. Like, wait, I thought, am I back in school? I think that's one of the other magical parts of this too. What made things work so well was that we were doing something that sure you would see in the city, maybe more, I don't want to say more professional, but kind of the long running programs, companies that have had live music and have been doing it for a long time. We brought something to a community that didn't have those resources necessarily available.
Yeah.
My band teacher brain goes, at that point there was no band program in Vermilion. There was years prior, but there wasn't that live music, and anytime live music was brought in, there was some garage bands, that kids picking up a guitar and banging around on some drums and stuff and playing some music, but
or Dr. Hook would pass through town once a year, every year.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that was kind of the whimsical, magical thing of this too, is that we were putting on a full performance. It wasn't just like, it wasn't the, hey mom, look at me and my cousins are going to do a little dance for you. Like smile big honey. It wasn't like that. It was, we were doing something that no one else was doing at, I think, a level and a caliber that I think people weren't expecting. And I think that we were, but I think we kind of shocked a few people.
And I think later on when we ended up going to the canned music, there was reasons behind that. I think by then things had gotten so much more challenging because we were dealing with different parents and different kids and a different just a different reality than we had in the beginning, that we realized that it was too much to carry. We had to be realistic as to what we could do. And if I remember correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if either one of you remember, but I think the last show we did with a band, was it Joseph?
Yeah.
And the Technicolor Dreamcoat?
It was Joseph.
Yeah. So the first however many that works out to be, we're all done with live bands. And then the next performance after that was Vermilion Goes Broadway, which we had to have canned music because of the, when we get into later on talking about Vermilion Goes Broadway, we couldn't have done it with a live band. It would have been really challenging. And so then after that, and with changes, it kind of went into the pattern. And then I guess we tried the best we could do for Sweeney Todd. Oh, and we had a live band for Little Mermaid. So there was some.
Oh, we did too. That's right. We did. Well, we did have one that was canned in the midst of the earlier stuff, and that was When in Rome. But I think about that because that was an interesting contrast for the people to get a hold of, because they had experience with a live unit, and then they had to discipline themselves to, if you can call it that, to a canned thing where, the band wasn't going to vamp for you to get ready. You had to come in full on. So I think that was a good experience in many ways, because it helped to give people an understanding of different scenarios. And nowadays, unfortunately, it is, for a theater company trying to do what we did today, it's sad as it is, far more unlikely generally to have live, to have a pit, to have a live band.
I feel like when there was that change into when in Rome, when we went to the canned music, it did change. Like, not saying it changed. That show was so unique in that we hadn't done something like that. It was a comedy, in the sense of what the show ended up being, right? So, and it wasn't not having the live band there. There was a good transition in the fact that, like, it wasn't a show that we'd done before, so people were seeing something new, something not that the shows we didn't do before didn't have its comical parts, of course, but different company, different just different kind of approach to it, right? So what I do know, I do recall people be asking, like, "Oh, where's the live band?" And I'm just like, "Oh," and I wasn't the person to ask for that, but it did change.
The truth of the matter is that the next show, which was Fiddler on the Roof, was when we first started basically having adults.
Right.
If you look back. And so that means that we were, like, it really was just a young person's show, and we had a lot of new, younger folks that hadn't had a lot of experience. And the company that I was working for, or this is the first time ever, like, because everything else was, MTI or Samuel French or, sorry, I'm blanking out on the other one that I liked so much.
Tams,
thanks. So working with them, they had live music. There was no such thing as canned music back then with MTI. They didn't give you such a thing. You had to have, like, right. So this was a company called Pioneer, and it was designed specifically for youth and, more of a package canned deal. So they did have the backing track there. They had a vocal one for the kids to listen to, and then they also had all of the music there for you. So I think that sort of dictated, like, why we went to it for that. And I don't think we would have even thought about not having a band for Fiddler on the Roof, because it was just too important.
Agreed. You can't do Fiddler on the Roof live. Can I interject something about a point you made, Mike, about not dumbing it down for kids, making it sweet and cute and everything. And I think that's a really important point, because there right through was this underlying legitimacy, if I can use that word, for what was being done. It's like, yeah, it's young people, and we're going to have young people experience this. I mean, and that's always struck me as a better approach. And so when I found out that there was a Fiddler on the Roof for young people version, I thought that's ridiculous.
I'll never forget, Mark. I'll never forget. I think it was, I don't know if it was before intensive week, but you had you gave us a presentation. Like, I remember sitting on the stage at the theater. Like, there's a slot. Maybe I'm hallucinating.
No, it's true.
But I remember sitting, and you went through the history of, like, let me talk to you about what the significance of this show is, right? Yes. And I feel like all of those, I don't want to say, all of those beginning shows, I can't necessarily talk about Grease. I don't think you guys sat down and talked about abortion and stuff like that with a bunch of 11-year-old. Like, so you've had premarital sex, and you're going to have to make a really big life choice. So after you finish your shreddies this morning and you braid your hair, that's really getting to the mind of a teenage girl who's about to, like.
This is a picture of Dr. Henry Morgenthaler.
I don't think, but I do think I doubt that was the case, but for at least with Little Shop, Cindy and you and I talked about. I think there's a lot of criticism and judgment in the fact of, like, oh, you can't do this. These are just kids, right? Or, like, this is not I think, like, the other day we were talking about Grease and how, like, oh, this is an inappropriate show.
We talked more about
the themes and stuff. But at the same time, like, with Little Shop too, like, I've talked about, like, I was 13, maybe 14. I forget how old I was. Grade 8. I think it was grade 8 when I started, because it took a couple of years for us to get Little Shop on stage. But I remember thinking, like, just how dark this show is, and these really murder, but it's funny, but it's also abuse. So we got a dentist. I definitely can. I understand, like, the gravity of the situation of this show has dark theme. I was definitely one of the older cast members at like 13, 14, but it was a darker theme show. It was a show that people could say, well, how could you have a bunch of young kids doing this show? Shouldn't you be doing, like, Honk the Musical, like the Ugly Duckling, and everyone's up there with, like, jazz hands and like, shouldn't you? Why aren't you doing Into the Woods? Like, and I'm like, but for at least I can't speak for you, Cindy, but yes, I'm putting you on the spot. Like, you never shied away from that. You had a vision, you had a purpose. You didn't ever shy away from tackling some of those bigger themes.
Well, there was always a show that was big and had challenges. I think there may be the 1 year where you would say that, was when we did Little Mermaid, right? And then usually I would have, like, a one for the younger kids, like, right when we did Charlie Brown, and then we did Beauty and the Beast. But then what made it different was that we had adults that were involved in the second show, and just the kids in the younger ones. So we would attempt to choose ones that weren't as, with difficult themes as much. Although you'd have to question whether Aladdin, was dumbed down, but we, as you know, we did the Broadway one. We did not do the dumbed down one for Aladdin because I refused to do that.
Yeah, and as a school director for my theater program here, I've done junior versions of the last probably 5 shows I've done, and it's beneficial in the fact that it's good because most of my cast are grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, and then I got a handful of junior, senior high students that kind of come in and they carry the weight to some of those bigger roles. And so it works because that mindset of the show usually takes an hour and a half. I get 1 day a week for months, but I lose half the cast for sports or for dance or for all those other things where they say at this period of time I can't come to practice because we did want them to be able to do everything. And when we start in September and we put a show on in May, there's a lot of times throughout the year where there's other events happening, so we were very understanding. But I think to the show that we just completed, if I were to do the full stage production of it, we would not have had the capacity, I guess, or the mental space to carry it. Do I wish I could? Yes, but I think it really comes down to the fact that just the three of us sitting here, we all were coming from the same like vision of what our expectation was, but we all contributed in a way that we were offering something different, and we were keeping the ball moving, and not everything just weighed on one of us to take care of the whole thing. I mean, Cindy, I'm sure at times you're like you're leading the army into battle, but I feel like we were a very cohesive team and we worked together. Although there's arguments and disagreements left and right, I take any given intensive week, there's usually someone who's been offended and crying in the corner. But at the end of the day, we had a really good group of adults leading this really unique group of thespians, and it worked.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I have to say that a lot of times it depends entirely on why you're doing something, right? And with VTP, certainly in those formative years, those formative few years, the fact that there was the emphasis, first of all, on knowing people and having a genuine relationship, not just kind of a social thing, but actually relating to people, created a kind of chemistry that allowed people to become more confident and with that more competent. So that really helped to generate more momentum with the projects themselves, and allowed Cindy to be able to think about things like Little Shop of Horrors and Fiddler on the Roof, certainly. But the fact that we were most concerned about young people having an environment where they can be safe. We've talked about this many times, that it is okay to fail here, and nobody's going to even see it as a failure. It's just going to be you being you, understanding other people, using that chemistry of learning, the craft of theater, but in a way that's relationally oriented or centered.
There's never enough exposure, and giving kids just the chance to try is a huge deal, because from the educator point of view, arts is always ripped out of every single reality of, get rid of the arts first, get rid of this first, get rid of music, get rid of drama, get rid of this, that. Like that can always come in later. Like the most important thing, academics, and in a sense it's true, but I argue with students all the time where they're like, why do I need band? Why do I need music? Why do I have to take this class? I said, well, do you want a job in the future? They're like, I don't need this to have a job. I was like, but think about all the skills you're developing. Like, you're able to collaborate with other people. You have a part, you're responsible for your part, and your part plays a bigger, as a piece of the puzzle to the bigger picture. You have to learn to take directions. You have to be able to be reliable. Like, all these skills that you're learning, like, I have a part in this show. Well, my part's just a little part. My part's not important. I'm like, but it is, because we need that tree in that corner piddling on the floor, because that's going to be the most important thing in that scene. People are going to remember that, right? And so, like, the reality of the situation is that whole, I don't know who came up with it, but like, there's no such thing as a small part, just small actors, and like the mindset that, like, I look back and say, if I didn't have those opportunities, if I didn't have that, and I think kind of taking a segue in this as well is, in the early years, I was around till Beauty and the Beast was my last show, I think, right? Or was it Charlie Brown?
Yeah, it was your
What
last
came
show,
first, the
but
chicken or the egg?
then you came in to be the adjudicator for
Oh, audition
and your
for
wife
Little
came
Mermaid.
in and did the adjudication for um, Little Mermaid because I
Yeah,
was contracted by Allied Arts and it was an expectation
to
that
do
I did
auditions. Yeah.
adjudication. Yeah. So you did
So
come back for that.
but I think one of the things like is that in the beginning, it never really. I don't think it ever went to our heads. Like it was such a unique situation. Like lightning in the bottle where all of us were very different people that had different strengths and abilities to contribute, but we never left the after our productions being like, well, look at me, like here's the feather in my cap, aren't I a rock star? It was always we were very humbled because you kept us humble and you gave us the bigger picture of the idea that like we're we're talented, we're gifted, but we are only as strong as we are unified, I guess. And so there was never, at least for me, I didn't ever feel like I was a standout, like I was leading, I was stealing the spotlight. Like we were so dependent on each other.
Yes.
And you guys taught us to do that, right? Like trust the musicians. When being on stage and saying this was new for all of us too, but the support that you gave us and the idea that like we need each other, we can't do this without each other. That was always kind of ingrained in us, and I think that kept us level-headed.
Well, that's good.
For
I think was central to the whole concept, really. I mean, there were a lot of, I remember many people I can think about who I don't know that they knew that they were gifted necessarily, except for the fact that that relationship started to build a sense of interest. There were things that people didn't think about doing before they got into VTP. And it wasn't even necessarily on stage. In many cases, it was the lighting or the sound or that kind of thing. And they realized that they had a technical bent related to the arts. And, broaden the nuances of what it means to be in the arts as a result.
And I agree entirely. And the fact that none of us, I don't feel like we ever viewed ourselves as like we were the word makes me a little cringy, but like we were very much a family, and the fact that we understood what roles we played and how like we couldn't do this without the lighting, we could do this without the backstage. But Cindy and Mark, both of you found ways often to, when people felt like they knew what their place was, or like this is what I'm going to do, or I'm too scared to be on stage, or I want to be part of it because they liked the inclusivity of what it was. You always found a way to get people on stage, whether they wanted to or not. And also you always had us involved in all the other aspects of it too, like beyond choreography and blocking, like even backstage or props or sets or lights, music, like everyone had, you found ways to pull people out of their shells, and give them opportunities that they may not have ever have or would have taken the initiative to do if there weren't enough of us behind them, like ushering them, saying like, hey, you should do this. You should go on stage and be that piddling tree. We really need it. It's funny. Or like, I mean, there was no tree that piddled, for the record, but there literally was the sense that there are people that did go on stage that if you would have asked them at the beginning of the season, they'd rather die than be on stage.
No, for sure.
But instead they look at them and they're hilarious. And another thing like Mark, you're mentioning, is that I think as cast members, we didn't use we didn't have the terminology to understand that what skills and abilities we had. Instead, we would say, "Oh, you're funny. Oh, this kid's funny. This kid's." Wouldn't say, "Oh, you're a really super talented kid. You're gonna make it big." No, it was more hey, this guy's a clown. This and it was just kind of the idea of we downplayed the fact that, hey, we actually are good at what we do. And I think we just felt like we didn't have enough experience behind us to start labeling, oh, these are my attributes. No, it's like, this kid's a jerk, but he's hilarious. Or this person's really shy, but man, they can make music. Like we didn't really label things.
No.
We never walked around with labels. Oh, that's the singer, that's the dancer. Yeah, these people dance, but we all danced. And there's terrible footage in an imaginary box somewhere of me dressed up like a pirate doing choreography with a A&W glass mug in my hand, pretending to be drunk on stage. I'm like, who let me on stage? Who ever let me move my feet together? But the thing that drives me crazy is in the setting I'm in right now, my professional setting, as a co-director of a school drama program, I'm the one choreographing. I'm the one doing the choreography. And I'm like, if you would have told me 20 years ago that, oh yeah, you're going to be teaching people to do grapevining and salsa dancing in this number, I would have said, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? I'm the last person. But I have been through the ringer enough times where I think, okay, yeah, this is easy. This is no brainer. And I think that also goes to the fact that I think one of the reasons why we were very successful was both of you for sure had always instilled in us the opportunity to be creative, because green is not a creative color, but we were. And so we were creative.
That's an in-joke.
You always enabled us to be creative, to write music. We wrote a show. We literally wrote a show. Cindy, you wrote a show. And
Three,
you based
actually.
It and you based it off of our own creations, our own music, we sit there and we go through scenes, and we did character development. We did all of that, and we created some awesome things, but that was us. And we took pride in that, but that also gave us the opportunity to test ourselves, to say, well, what can I do? I'm stuck in this generation of students right now that are enabled to be helpless, and they expect everything spoon-fed to them. And I think to myself, no, that shouldn't be the case. Kids should be working to be proud of what they do. They shouldn't be fed lines constantly. We were taught to improv. We were taught to to roll with the punches, right? If things went wrong, we didn't have a meltdown. Is this
where we bring in the inside joke of clothes for renovations?
Well, that wasn't. I think we learned from that. So, for context, for our listeners and viewers, our second show was Little Shop of Horrors, and there's a number in the show called "Clothes for Renovations" that includes the lead cast, Seymour, Audrey, and Mr. Mushnick, and we're all in the shop.
And the background singers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the girls. And so we must have ran that song. I don't know. Not as much as we did the prologue, but we ran that number so many times. But we were very confident. Oh yeah, no, whatever. We thought we knew it so well, and for no reason whatsoever, we get on stage and we're in character. I'm sweeping. I think I'm sweeping, or someone's sweeping. I think we all had brooms. I don't know. Anyways, a really clean flower shop, and so we're sweeping, and the music's playing, and there wasn't even a second of doubt until the music starts playing, and then the three of us look at each other and we're like, no, 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 no. Like not a single word came to our head, and we would between the three of us that were taking those parts, we would always throw in random parts that we did remember, and it was so funny. It was funny, and sure we were embarrassed, but we didn't let it eat us alive.
Yeah.
Where other people would run off stage bawling their eyes out. For us, we just laughed
and the
because
audience didn't catch
the show goes on. Yeah,
the audience didn't know that you made a mistake.
I doubt there was anyone out there with the script being like, you missed it. Oh, those aren't the words, right? Like, it was a show. People are coming to be entertained. And even though we made mistakes, half people that realized we did probably thought it was funny, and people that didn't realize didn't know any different, right? But I think that's one of the things is that you taught us to be independent, and to not just independent, but also to be dependent on each other, and to keep going. Like, the show must go on. The show must go on, right? And I think we learned that really, really early, that was going to be the reality of the situation, that nothing's perfect. Yeah. Doesn't matter how much we rehearse it. In the moment, things happen, and I still do that today with my drama club, where I run through improv games. I run through improv things because I say you're not even gonna realize, but there will be a moment where you think this is make it or break it, and you break it, and you have to fix it like that, and they don't understand the process, which I think, Cindy, you did. You prepared us for the best case and also worst case. And
I think also, just to say that, giving a safe place means it's not American Idol. And for example, there was one of the girls that played a part in Little Shop of Horrors, and it was like the one song that she was singing. And she was young, like literally, like I think she might have been 10, but a great voice. And she got stage fright just before because she was afraid she would forget. So I took her to Mark, and he sat with her and went over it so that she felt comfortable with just her and with him, and whatever. And now we all know how she turned out. Like, she didn't have to even think. She didn't need anybody's help because she ended up being just such a brilliant singer.
I think one of the things, and another reason for the success, at least with, I don't know what to call us, but like those are the original cast, the original teams, the original whatever that is. I always think to the fact that it created a community. It created like a home away from home, in a way that things weren't always sunshine and rainbows in practices or rehearsals, or like we all have very different personalities. But I think there is something that drew us there every single week, to every practice,
because
the
chips and jujubes.
It wasn't just the jujubes and chips and pop and the amount of sugar. It was, although that played a role in the simple-minded children of Hamlin being brought into the mountains.
Bribery is always something that's needed.
It helped a lot, but we kept coming there. We kept coming back, and for some people it might have been like, well, our parents might have said like, well, you've signed up for it, you're with it till the end. But I don't think that was the case for most of us. I think literally it was we looked forward to that practice. We knew the day of the week. And I know I'm making these Pied Piper jokes, but the funny thing about it is I think about going downtown to our rehearsal space. And some of us are coming from the Catholic school, some of us are coming from public school, some of us are coming from homeschool. Like, we're all coming, and you just see, if you really like had an aerial view, Like there are times where we're all these kids are just encircling and like creating this collective. And if you're watching, it was a bit eerie to see why are all these people going into the back of this random location? What's happening? Going through the back door, like. So
yeah, that's what it was. Sometimes we had you come through the back door.
Yeah, and so I think it was just funny being like, man, those theater kids like causing riots. Like, what are they doing? Loitering the back alleys.
Mike, it was a quiet detachment. Those constables, had a hard time figuring out how to fill it. Yeah, they had a quota. Yeah.
Hold the phone. We're gonna cut this episode in half. This is part 1 of 2 parts with our interview with Mark. We are really, really excited for everyone who is tuning in and everyone who is watching and joining us on our podcast. There is so much more for us to discuss, and we are really excited to bring you along on the journey. This is Mike. Hold on tight. We're going to head into part 2 of episode 2 before you know it. Stay tuned.